Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sock Monkey Mike Show. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, which is still crazy to think in 2021 that this is possible, make sure you guys go follow that on that platform as well. Or if you're on your YouTube, I do appreciate if you're on YouTube as well. Make sure you guys like and comment, and of course subscribe. I mean, hey, it would be nice to have a couple of subscribers here and there, trying to get those goals going. But today, I have a very special guest. This woman in particular is a huge inspiration in terms of the broadcasting industry. You may have seen her on AfterBuzz TV doing a lot of shows here and there. One in particular that I really love is Women's Wrestling Talk, where they just a bunch of passionate women's wrestling fans, and of course also wrestlers as well, with Sarah the Rebel, passionate about talking wrestling, and I love the conversation that goes around. She has a lot of other shows as well on there for AfterBuzz TV, but not only that, she's a real trailblazer in the broadcasting industry as well, from Toronto, of course the Canada scene as well. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the one, the only TK Trinidad. How are you?
Hey, that was like a really interesting intro. I was like, who is he talking about? So thanks.
Oh, I do appreciate it. One thing I do want to get started with, TK, is the fact that you're really putting your content out there. Of course, as we discussed before we started airing, that you have a couple shows coming out this month as well. It really means that like 2021 is truly going to be a big year for you.
I mean, I hope so. Yeah, last year was, definitely, if people follow me last year was quite the interesting year for me. Not so good, but with life, there's ups and downs. So, the great thing about I guess being a former athlete, it's just like, you realize that there's those ups and downs, and in the midst of, all the trials and tribulations, I was still, preparing for stuff, and, it's really coming together. So, yeah, I've been fortunate.
And what I absolutely love too is, with that athletic background, it seems to me that, whenever you talk about sports, whether that's professional wrestling or any other sport in general, having that athletic background really kind of gives that perspective as a fan to say, wow, she knows what she's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. I think of it as like a little like fraternity or sorority of sorts. It's just kind of, there's that understanding of leaving it all on the ring, or leaving it all on the track, or leaving it all on the field, or whatever. And that work hard for it ethic in order to reach whatever goal. So there is that, general principle and understanding. And then also with that mental pushing your body beyond its limits in order to get there. So that's a definite, only a selected few individuals can really understand that. So, it makes for interesting conversations.
And speaking about interesting conversations, one thing before we go into that, one thing I did pull out from your website, which you guys could check out at tktrinidad.com, which that will be in the link description below. And of course, as we discussed earlier, that was in the works of getting rebranded as far as this month.
Yeah.
But one quote I do want to point out is a Michael Phelps quote they have right off the bat. And that is, if you want to be the best, you have to do the things that other people aren't willing to do. And when I read that quote, I mean, that really hits with me, because that's something that I've done for the past 7 years of doing interviews like this and content like this.
Yeah.
So can you talk about like how much of this quote means to you?
That's my everyday. I mean, there's so many things. There's so many things, like I was just talking to somebody about, they want to start a podcast, and it's like, it's so easy to start a podcast, but it's like, the press releases, which means that you have to transcribe, and nobody really likes to transcribe. And, it's all the other little nuances that come with it. And, same thing with my business. It's like, there's so many, we have to do inventory. That means we have to count every single item and cap and whatever, and that takes a long time, and nobody wants to do that. So those things definitely make a difference. I think doing the things that we don't necessarily want to do to get to where we want to go, if you could push past that, you're definitely going to benefit from it. And not everybody wants to do it, and I understand it. I don't either, but I just I just shut up and keep going.
Well, I mean, of course there is that shut up and keep going mentality, but I mean, just having that mentality in general of just keeping going, doing the extra work, putting in that 110% effort, it really brings you kind of a better understanding of the business that you're going into as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of things, and it, you know, like I said, it reverts back to like being, you know, an athlete. You know, there's certain things that you learn as an athlete, especially if you're not one of those, you know, you're not particularly like, you're not LeBron James or whoever, like just gifted, and he works. So I'm not taking that away from him, but you know, because he was gifted and he was gifted at such a young age, people were, you know, there's certain things that kind of came a little bit easier to him. Not necessarily the work ethic, but you know, maybe school, who knows. But you know, with the rest of us, it's just kind of one of those things where you have to keep trying out for those teams. You have to keep working, you know, every day. There's always somebody after your spot, and it's always like a numbers game. And because of that work ethic as a young kid, as being an athlete, as becoming a professional athlete, I apply that to everything else without even thinking about it. It's just, you know, nobody wants to run as a sprinter, nobody wants to run a mile, but running a
Oh
mile
no.
can help you know, improve by just that millisecond. You know what I'm saying? So all those little things help you. So it's the same thing. All those little things, doing inventory or doing press releases or doing whatever, it all helps, the show and the business. Like the show's improved so much in like 3-4 weeks by just doing a lot of things that I won't get into that nobody wants to do. But you know, we ended up doing it, and we're definitely seeing the benefits of it. So.
And seeing those benefits obviously are a reward when it comes to your ethic. And what I absolutely love too is that track and field reference as well, because I used to be in track and field as well back in high school, and seeing the sprinters and seeing the amount of running we had to do, because I was a thrower, and just seeing the pain and the exhaustion that comes with it. I mean, it truly takes a passion to do it.
Yeah, I definitely will not let my children do it. I'll like teach them like the basics, but definitely push them into other sports. Yeah, track is one of those things where it's a baseline. Once you have that form, you can apply it to anything. You can apply it to football, you can apply it to soccer, you can apply it. Just that little bit of technique will help you in so many other different sports. And yeah, those, you know, repeat 200s with like a 30-second rest in between, or it's just insane. But I mean, you know, I was just working out today. It's just one of those things where that's another thing that's carried me through. Like when I want to get back into shape, I always revert back to like my old track workouts, because those are definitely doozies, and not the average individual's gonna go and, you know, run stairs or hills or repeat 200s just because. So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
And of course, what you're doing right now is you're absolutely killing it in the business. But speaking about your background in athletics, I do want to talk about, you know, yourself as a sprinter. Where did that kind of interest come for you when it comes to like going into track and field?
Oh wow. Well, growing up in Canada, and the particular area that I grew up in, like it's not like how America is, where you know you have these big high school, you know, feeder schools and stuff like that. It wasn't like that. The elementary school I went to maybe had, I don't know, maybe less than 200 kids, if that much. And our track season was 3 months long. But I'm a child of immigrants, and I was the firstborn. So typically the firstborn has, you know, this I can do anything mentality. And then you add the immigrant thing to it. It's like, we have to do everything. And yeah, I just gravitated towards sports, and I was pretty good at it. I did track, basketball, volleyball. And then same thing in high school. Unfortunately, my last year of high school, my coach decided, because I was actually getting outside. This is so funny. I totally forgot about the story. I got an outside coach, and she didn't like that. So my last year of high school, I didn't run. I didn't make the team. And I went on to get a full ride scholarship, and nobody else did from that university or that high school at that time, which is kind of ironic. But yeah, I didn't make the team, but I believed in myself so much that I actually ended up running away from home when I was 17, and I got a track scholarship. Went to Mount Sac for a year, and then went to University of Oregon, and you know, the rest is history, I guess.
And of course, that history is being more and more powerful as your career goes on. I mean, when it comes to your scholarship and going to Mount Sac, which is literally not that far from me over here
I
in the
love
area.
Mount Sac. I love Mount Sac.
Yeah, I actually had a couple of friends that go to Mount Sac. But speaking about TK for a little bit more, what I absolutely love is just the mentality that you have when it comes to athletics, when it comes to broadcasting. When it comes to the broadcasting aspect, do you feel like that passion for broadcasting came immediately? Was it something that you kind of had to get used to and you were just trying out? What was that process like?
I unfortunately, because I have such a one track mind, like I just thought about, like I was, being from Canada, and being an atypical type person, I was already good in school. So school came very easy for me. So my main focus was track. So, in university and all, I just thought about track. I thought about the Olympics. I thought about training. Like that's all I really thought about. Like, I didn't really think about, at one point I wanted to be like an English professor. I wanted to be something else. Like I didn't really know per se. It was more of a theory versus like this is exactly what I'm going to do. It's not like the path of a doctor. So it took me a long time to kind of get to the broadcast part. What actually happened was, after I retired from track, I actually tore both my hamstrings. So I was forced into retirement. And I happened to be back in Canada, and I was walking down the street with my Oregon sweats on. And this gym owner saw me and he's like, "Have you ever thought about being a personal trainer?" Never thought about it. And I was like, why not? Not working. And I actually became a personal trainer. And I think if you speak to a lot of athletes who didn't become professional athletes for a long time, or they didn't become this, they usually kind of stop in the personal trainer lane for a bit. So I was a personal trainer. I actually became a really good one. I had a boot camp business, and I was training a lot. I was traveling a lot. So it was really well. I was really doing well. And from then I actually got into the broadcast industry because a lot of people wanted to interview me. And I actually started interviewing. I actually started training a reporter for CP24, which is like CNN of Canada. CP24 is like, CNN Canada. And he kind of suggested that I should get into like journalism. So I was like, I definitely didn't see myself being like a 40-year-old personal trainer. So it's like, I think this is what I'm going to do. So I got into that and I absolutely loved it. And my first internship, I ended up moving back to the US. And my first internship was with Stevie Wonder's radio station. So,
wow.
Yeah. So it was definitely, it was like a personal training was like a stop. But it kind of kept me, like, I think if I didn't do that, I did something else, then I wouldn't be as, I don't know. I ask myself, I don't know. My journey might be a little bit different. I don't know if I would be like into fitness as much. I don't know. It just happened. Like my personal training really extended my fitness journey. Because then I got into, football, then I was doing CrossFit, and I was doing competitions and stuff like that. So I really remained in the fitness realm as a subsect for up until I think my last CrossFit event was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So it was, I think the personal training part kept me in the fitness atmosphere while still pursuing the TV stuff.
Well, the fitness actually gives you that motivation as well to, help not only help people and not only make yourself better, but it also continues, for you to go forward and to get that mentality of just like, you know what, I know everything is tough, especially during a pandemic. Yeah. You just keep going, and that personal training aspect as well just helps you kind of really realize a lot of stuff that you weren't even capable of.
Yeah, I mean, personal training, I was just talking to a friend of mine. She's a stylist and she wants to get into lifestyling. And, personal training is like you deal with people on a regular basis. And same thing with anything else some of the things that you do. And I was dealing with a lot of people who had problems, and I was more like listening to their problems than actually training them, which wasn't a problem. I still talk to a lot of them today. But I realized that, my passion for being healthy, or at least being on the journey of being healthy, was something that I really enjoyed. And when I was on one particular TV show and they were talking, and they were interviewing me, I was like, this is what I really want to do. I want to educate and inspire people just to be their best selves. Like not everybody is going to have that mentality of, I'm going to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go for a run. But, you know, if there's going to be, you know, that one interview or that one tidbit of information or that one thing that's going to spark them to at least try or think about it, then, you know, I wanted to be that source.
Yeah, and once again, just that mentality just keeps you going. One other passion that I do want to mention before we get into the broadcasting perspective a little bit more is your passion for helping and kind of leading a good lead for children as well. You volunteered for a lot of the track teams over there in the Toronto area. Can you talk to us about like what it's like kind of leading the youth to a kind of a better path, or whether that's getting them, you know, better athletes, or more so as just, you know, just learning more and more as time goes on?
Oh, wow. It depends. Like I really, my first high school coaching experience came through actually personal training. I was training a high school teacher, and she suggested that I become a coach at the high school. And I did. I became the assistant coach, and it was just so interesting because at that time, and I've definitely learned a lot since then, that time I was very like, it didn't make sense to me how somebody could be doing something and not want the best of it. Like, you know, somebody just going through the motions. Like, well, why be part of the track team if you don't want to do it? Like, it didn't make sense to me. So I definitely encountered a lot of different personalities. And I mean, I love what youth brings. Like it's what the understanding is, that you fully understand that, you know, no matter what age somebody is, they're always evolving, and you can take something from a 13-year. They can teach you something if you just open your eyes. Like you don't have to, if you're coming to them, well, I'm the adult and I know all this stuff. It's like, no, like that's the great thing about being young. You can question everything. And, you know, somebody actually listens to you, you know, and has that conversation. It might open a huge, you know, world to you. So with sports, it's like, especially in high school, you have this mosh pit of, you know, people who are great athletes, people who are just there because their friends are there. There's just so many different versions of it. And I enjoyed it quite a lot. Like I did some high schools in Canada. When I was at Mount Sac, one of the programs was we used to go to elementary schools and talk to kids. Same thing when I was in university. We went to kids. Well, I read to kids in university, but then I also was part of Athletes in Action, and we went to Kenya, and you know, we were part of helping with the triathlon there. So it's just now kind of looking back, and what I wish if I could change something is just that understanding that people are totally different, and that's fine. And I think for me at that time, it was like, no, I don't. There's only one way, like, and the one way is the hardest way, and this is how we're going to do it. But there's so many ways, there's so many different mentalities, and just realizing that everybody has different experiences, and that's, you know, what life is, and that's what makes people interesting.
Everybody has different stories and backgrounds, like you mentioned before, but I think everybody kind of shares that same idea of helping others and impacting especially children's lives. It's truly a reward unlike any other.
Oh yeah. I mean, a lot of the kids, well, not a lot, a few of the kids that I even interacted through personal training, where I trained their parents, and I know the kids, like now they're like grown up, and it's just so amazing to see, you know, them, you know, living their best lives. And, you know, you're allowed to make mistakes, and you're allowed to do things, you know, it's one of those things. And it's always interesting to me how just me being myself has impacted them. It's kind of like crazy how, you know, I had one of them, they actually came and visit LA a couple of years ago, and, you know, she was so afraid that I would like look at her a certain way. I was like, I don't care. Like, nah, I don't care, but like, I'm just going to accept you no matter what. So it's just so interesting how, you know, I'm glad that there's that respect level, and I'm glad there's that appreciation, and I'm glad that that kids see that, you know, my passion, and, you know, because of that, they want to, you know, make me proud, which is how I look at my mother. Like, my mom has no idea what's going on. She, you know, TMZ, okay, whatever. So, but at the end of the day, a lot of my decisions are made at like, okay, if my mom were to really dig deep, would she like seeing this, or am I going to have a phone call? And if I feel like I'm going to have a phone call, then I just won't do it. That's my barometer for pretty much everything.
I mean, that's a great barometer. I mean, of course, with the inspiration of your mom and your family and just kind of putting yourself in their shoes, like what would they do? It's something that, not only just you're like, oh man, what would they do? It would be more just as like, you know what, like I'm really thinking about what they would do and kind of just putting yourself in their shoes, like I mentioned before, and really giving you
it's more of that nagging conversation. I'm sure
everybody
has that nagging mom, and it's like, it's love. I get it, but it's just kind of like, I just don't want to have that. If I can avoid that conversation where it's like, why did you do this? Then that's it. It's not more of like, what will my mom do? It's more of, is she gonna call me and ask me questions about some decision I made, and I just rather not deal with it. So in that case, I just don't do it.
Well, avoiding conversations aside, how much of an impact has your family been during your career?
It's a lot, but it's kind of one of those things where my grandmother just passed away. She passed away last year. We're in 2021 now. Last year in March, and it's so interesting with her passing away. I realized, because she was a part of our household until I was 17. And I realized there were so many things that she instilled in me that I didn't, how some parents are like, I'm trying to teach you a lesson. She never had to do that. And it's just one of those things where because of who I am, just organically, they don't have any like qualms about whether I'm going to be successful or whatever, because I've always been a determined individual. So my motivation is making sure that that determination and that perseverance results in like taking care of them, because they've taken care of me. So it's not something that's mandatory, because I know in some households it's like, no, yeah, this is what we're doing. It's more of, this is something just out of the love and the acceptance and the gratitude for me to just be authentically who I am. Like, not every child can run away and say, I'm going to go and get a scholarship, and not be, dragged by, and then come home and say, I got a scholarship, and then their parents allow them to leave again. So it's just I appreciate that, and all those lessons have made me who I am. And in that vein, I just want to show appreciation by more, financial compensation, taking care of my folks, especially my mom, because she's if you've watched Power, which I just finished watching recently, and I was really hesitant in watching it, just because I'm not a big person on getting on the bandwagon of TV shows, but the mother, Tasha, she like goes hard for her kids. Like, she will do anything for her children. And that's how my mom is. And as an adult, that's how I am towards my mom. So that's, why I work so hard.
And that is so relatable too, because I have the same feeling for my family, which consists of my mom, my aunt, and my grandmother. And that's just the love that they had for me, especially for the past 21 years of life, going to be 22 by the time this records.
Nice.
Well, thank you. So, just having that love for them, and having that same mentality, like you mentioned before, it just really makes you, go above and beyond to like pursuing the passions that you have and going forth towards what you want. So, of course, with that family support behind you.
Yeah.
So one quote I do want to go into before we go into anything else is a very good quote that's from the TK website, which again, you guys could go to that link below. And it is from a very famous person, which I think you'll know, is TK is a diverse talent, self-starter, and groundbreaker, as proven with her work on our AfterBuzz TV network and her Women's Wrestling Weekly, the world's first all-women's wrestling talk show.
Oh, Maria. I was like,
yeah,
what are you talking about? Yeah, I mean, that opportunity is there's certain things that just happen in life that are just is meant to be. Mm-hmm. And with AfterBuzz, and it's just certain steps that happen. So ironically, when I decided that I was going to become I was going to do this TV thing. I started working at a TV station in Toronto, and one of the guests happened to be Xavier Woods, and we were friends since then. And I had no idea. I wasn't really following wrestling at the time. Had no idea. He was with TNA at the time. Had no idea what was going on with wrestling. Then we happened to both be in LA, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm with WWE." I'm like, "Oh, that's great!" And like got me tickets, and I saw it. I'm like, "This is amazing!" And literally around that time, probably within the 6 months, I got signed to AfterBuzz, and I was watching specifically more just to support Xavier. I was watching WWE. And they were like, "Well, what show do you watch most?" I'm like, "I watch Raw." And from that experience, I think maybe 3 or 4 months later, I started co-hosting with X-Pac, and that was a huge deep dive and lesson learning, because I literally but because again, the athletic mentality is like, okay, X-Pac is a legend, I should know some stuff. And so I really went to a deep dive as far as knowing everybody who's on the show, everything that's going on, watching every show that came on at the time, which is now seems even more. And from there, got the opportunity of Women's Wrestling Weekly, and now Women's Wrestling Talk. And now I think it's going in its 3rd or 4th year. I don't even know anymore, but it's doing really, really well. And we just had Trish Stratus as a guest, and that was amazing. That was like 2 years in the making. There's a whole story behind that. And there are a lot of different podcasts that talk about women's wrestling. But what makes us very unique is that we do get those weekly interviews. And it's nice to break down an episode of Raw or SmackDown, but really getting the tea from the wrestlers themselves. And if not even talking about wrestling, talking about other things is definitely amazing. And just to I was going through the archives a couple weeks ago, it's just amazing to see certain things happen, like certain wrestlers being signed to certain places, or Chelsea Green was one where she was with Impact, and then she was injured, and then we talked about her wedding, and then all of a sudden she's with WWE. And so it's just so amazing to just see people do great things, and just see their progression, especially women.
Yeah, and like I mentioned before, as we were talking in the interview, how Women's Wrestling Talk just brings not just women's wrestling fans, but just wrestling fans together as one, and just viewing just topics, serious topics, and of course, just topics that happened on Raw last week, or talking to Heather Monroe one time, and just kind of hearing her story, showcasing her story. It's truly something where it's all these great elements just mixed into one.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely with the three hosts, we all bring different things, and this is why I really, when we revamped the show, I was really excited, because this is what I wanted from the beginning, the infancy of the show, and we just couldn't get all the hosts together, meaning it just timing. I didn't know Emily at the time, even though I was hosting with her husband, which is weird. And Sarah was there, and then she had to leave. So now it's it's really a great mix, because Sarah being a wrestler, and then Emily also having a huge wrestling background, and also balleting and hosting and stuff like that, and then my journalist background, but also wanting to have fun with it. And Sarah went like in the indie, it just really brings a really great mix to the show, and then also allowing for questions that not everybody's going to either think to answer or be comfortable in asking. We were definitely talking about being minorities in the business way before it was talked about, or it was cool to talk about. And understanding that being a Black woman with different hair all the time and hair issues, like, you're not going to ask that question if you don't know that, hey, thinking about my hair a month in advance and figure out what I'm going to do with it is a thing. That's conversations that allow us to have, and we're a very diverse crew of co-hosts, and which also makes it amazing too. So I'm really excited about the prospects and everything that's going to happen, and we're just prepping for the next couple months, and we have so many other things kind of coming down the pipe. So it's it's a really exciting to be part of it.
Yeah, it feels like that whole crew of the AfterBuzz team just seems like a bunch of all passionate people that just want to help each other. I talked to actually Jack Farmer about a couple episodes ago, which you guys could check out actually.
Hollywood Jackon.
Yes.
Wow.
And of course, Johnny LaQuasta was a part of that conversation as well. And just having them talk about AfterBuzz, and just having this whole like family of just helping each other out. Flobo was a part of that conversation as well. Just kind of that guidance of like, if you need help, here we are. I mean, it's true, and I don't know if you would agree, but it seems to me that AfterBuzz TV is truly that place where not only you could get as much help as you needed, but it's filled with passionate people. It really helps you become that breakout star in the broadcasting business.
Yeah, it just really, I mean, it's like anything, like, university, like, it just depends on what you put in it and, who you decide to hang around with, etc. And AfterBuzz provided like two really distinct groups for me, like a wrestling group, and then also Black women who are very strong and who are about, hosting and being journalists. There was like those two different groups that AfterBuzz provided. But it was just one of those things where I think you just draw if you're that type of person, you're going to attract the same type of people. So if you're very driven, and it could be on something else, it doesn't have to be on wrestling, people are going to see that. And I think that's what people saw with me, because when I first started with AfterBuzz, I was there almost 4 or 5 days a week. A couple hours a day. And, it's one of those things there where it really allowed me to hone my craft as far as being a host and being a co-host and also being a producer, because without those producing skills, particularly from X-Pac 12360, Women's Wrestling Talk wouldn't be the show that it is now, meaning that on a weekly basis, we get picked up 4 or 5 times from different publications on a regular basis. And if that wasn't a part of X-Pac 12360, and to see how that goes, like, we would just be, no offense to other podcasts, but we would just need another podcast, doing interviews. And there's nothing wrong with that. It just really just depends on what you're trying to do with your podcast. And I feel like if I'm going to put in all this work, then somebody needs to pay attention, damn it. So, that's 12360 definitely helped me with that, the producing aspect of it.
I feel like too, especially being a content creator myself, it feels like that if you're not passionate and you don't love what you put out, no matter if it gets 1 million views, if it gets 1 view, if it gets 2 listens, 5 million listens, as long as you love it and you're passionate about it, I feel like that, that's all that matters. Just right. Knowing that you put the work in, you put the transcripts in or transcribe it, and right. You just, you love it. You go back and watch it. You're like, man, that was such a great conversation with TK. Like, that was amazing.
Oh, wow. I never go back and watch. It's one of those things where, it's the key word is consistency. Like, you see so many people who start podcasts, and again, this is not shade. It's just one of those things where it's consistency. Women's Wrestling Weekly, there's multiple times where I felt like, okay, I'm not getting any help. I need this or I need that, or we could be at this level if we just do this. So many different things. And at the end of the day, for me, it was just like, no matter what happens, this show is going to go on, whether I'm there or not. I just posted one clip of Evan because I forgot, I either got stuck at work or something happened. And I was like, Evan, you have to do the show. And at that time, the intro was literally my name, and then it just shows him. So, I mean, no matter what, it's not necessarily about me. The thing becomes, it's like your baby. So it becomes whatever that is. So for Women's Wrestling Weekly, Women's Wrestling Talk, whether I'm there or not, the show must go on. And that's how I approach everything. Like it's even about, my skincare line. It's like I'm trying to put in a place where whether I'm there or not, it's still going to keep moving. And that's kind of the game plan with everything, because at the end of the day, we're literally specks of dust that eventually is going to fly away and be in the earth somewhere. So,
but
just enjoy it.
Of course, but aside from being a speck of dust, I mean, obviously TK has, not only is passionate about what you do, but also likes to have fun doing it. I do want to have a sidebar question when it comes to one of the episodes of Women's Wrestling Talk, and that happens to be your episode with Evan and your special guest at the time, which was Heather Monroe. So during the break, you had to pop out the old Beyonce and Who Runs the World. Can you talk to us about because that was an awesome moment. I do have to admit,
was that the dance break, I think?
Yeah, I think that was the dance break. Yes.
Oh yeah. We actually took that from because at the end of the day, when you look at anything, my personal opinion, but when you look at anything, whether it's TV, whether it's radio, like if you look at like James Brown, like if you look at his first stuff, he got his stuff from wrestling, like the stuff with the cape and all that's from wrestling. And it's just like a lot of things come from other people. So it's like, why am I trying to reinvent the wheel? So the dance break was literally from R-Truth and Camilla. And I was like, we should just have a dance break. So I'm like literally majority of things that I do. And I usually let the people know, obviously I don't know R-Truth, but if it's like from like logos or graphics or something, and I know the person, I think it's amazing, I'll be like, yo, your thing is really cool and I'm about to rip it off. It's not gonna be exact, but I want to tell you you're the inspiration, instead of you just figuring out like, oh, I think she did this. So yeah, that dance break was literally ripped off from R-Truth, and it was fun, but we got into a whole bunch of copyright issues with YouTube, so then we had to stop it. But yeah, I think we had a good one with Melissa Santos. She had her baby there that day. So yeah, that moment in time, there was two moments that I really love and I'm fond of with Women's Wrestling Weekly was the dance breaks. And then also right before Sarah left, Sarah, Evan, and I had like just a really great groove on the show with guests and everybody. It was just a fun time. And so that's another like time that's like when I look back at the clips, I'm just like, man, that was like, it was hilarious. Like it was just like just the because Evan's a guy, so it's a little bit different, but he's just, he's off to greener pastures and he's just an amazing person, an amazing broadcaster. And he's if WWE doesn't take advantage of him, which I think they are starting to do, they're missing out. And I hope somebody else sees the gift that he has.
Oh, absolutely. When you look at Evan T. Mack, he's truly a larger-than-life personality and a larger-than-life person. But also, hopefully within this year as well, 2021, 2022, or whatever the case may be, WWE, TNA, AEW possibly can see the possible debut of TK Trinidad as well.
I mean, I'm not going to I'm not going to tell them no. I don't know. Like, I hope, I definitely, any one of those promotions would be great. But I don't know if they're ready for my brand. Like, I love wrestling, but I love, I also come from an entertainment background. So I'm not, I'm not the super diehard wrestler that's been watching wrestling for 20 years. Like I grew up watching wrestling, when I was a kid. My dad, my brother, and I used to watch it every Sunday and eat popcorn in Toronto. But we never bought pay-per-views or none of that stuff. So it was just and now I'm a real fan of it, but I'm a fan of the production of it. Mm-hmm. And the storylines and how they make you feel and all the little nuances that I've had the privilege to talk to people behind the scenes, and then also know a lot of the behind the scenes working of how entertainment works. So I'm a fan of wrestling in that sense. So I don't know. I mean, I would love. If you watch my Trish interview, if you pretty much watch any interview, especially somebody who has like, I don't know, something about them, I can come up with a bunch of storylines. So if you watch the Trish interview, I had maybe 10 storylines for her. I'm like, this is what you should do. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I definitely don't turn down checks. So come check out the website. It's all there.
Oh, of course. And speaking about Trish Stratus, because that's been the main ingredient to the conversation right now, how important was it for you to get a conversation with Trish Stratus, with her being a former multi-time women's champion and just being a trailblazer for women's wrestling?
Trish Stratus, it was one of those things where So, like I said, I'm from Toronto, and so there are a lot of Canadian wrestlers. So that there's like like I was saying before, like AfterBuzz. There's that AfterBuzz connection. There's a CrossFit connection. There's not like just with people. Like everybody has these different connections. So obviously, if somebody loves wrestling, I have there's a connection there. But if they're Canadian, there's a connection there. If they're from the islands, which my parents are from, there's a connection there. So I always try to make these little connections, because then it's just so much easier to have a conversation with somebody. And with Trish Stratus, it was one of those things where fortunately or unfortunately, and now I'm giving out the tea, so don't tell her I sent you, but universe, but her website has a contact email address, and I just literally just said, hey, I'm from Canada, and I would love to interview Trish. And so this was a 2-year interview in the making. And I was just like, so it's just one of those things to me. Again, it plays into the whole athletic thing. Like, all those 200-meter repeats, and you get this win, and now you're top 10 in the nation. Like that's all worth it. So it's the same thing where it's just like, I never gave up, but it wasn't one of those things where it's like, I have to. It was just like, no, and also understanding that people are human and things happen and life happens, and never take offense to it. So shout out to my pastor for teaching me that lesson a couple years ago. And I didn't take offense to it. And I just figured, it'll eventually happen. And she's super amazing. She's just like, I don't know. I've never met a Canadian wrestler I didn't like. Like, they're just so amazing because we're Canadian. And she was just great. She was easy to talk to. I think she found us entertaining because she tweeted back at us after the interview. So yeah, it was just one of those things where it's just it's great for the little guys to be recognized, because Trish can be on, any show, ESPN, TSN, obviously she's on WWE, all this other stuff. And, she made time for us. And, I think it was supposed to only be 20 minutes, and it ended up being almost a full hour. So really, really grateful for that. And yeah, like I said, I can't name a Canadian wrestler that I didn't like and didn't think was amazing. Like Chelsea Green's another one, Taya Valkyrie's another one, like Rosa Mendez is another one. Like, they're just amazing people that I still like. Like Chelsea Green broke her arm the other day, and I was like, are you okay? Like that's my genuine, not like, oh well, let's talk about it. It's like, no, like, are you okay? Like that's my, because she's amazing. And I think she hasn't reached her full potential yet on WWE. And hopefully it is going to happen. But now, her breaking her hand is, going to slow down the process. And the fact Zach's not there either, that's a whole nother issue. But, Trish was great. Pretty much any, no offense to my American folks, but, Canadian female wrestlers tend to be, great people. And I can't say anything. I cannot stop saying great things about them.
Well, of course, the conversation was absolutely great. Make sure you guys go check out that conversation. Link will be down below, hopefully, if I remember that. And, just make sure you guys go check that out, because every single interview with Wrestling Talk or any of the shows that TK has produced, I mean, it truly, again, just has that feel of like, you could just sit back, relax, and enjoy while you're at home during this pandemic. Or if you're on the road, you could listen to the interviews as well. So, no matter what you're involved in, it seems like that you just really appeal to just all.
I guess again, it's being organic and authentic. One of my the first lesson that I had in broadcast was from my teacher. I want to call him a mentor, but I haven't spoken to him in a while, so I don't know if he'll be a mentor. But my teacher, my very first broadcasting teacher was PJ Butter. And he has a radio show on K-Day, I think, now. And our assignment was to talk about yourself for 2 minutes. That's all you have to do, talk about yourself for 2 minutes. And at that time, it took me about an hour and a half to actually produce this. So we get into the class, and I play it for him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this sounds great. How long did it take you?" And I was like, like an hour and a half, like all proud and stuff. It's like, at the end of the day, everybody's human and everybody makes mistakes. And that was like this lesson that I've taken with me in broadcast, because at the end of the day, I flub up on, I think I was on one show where I literally got AEW and Impact, all like their storylines all over the place. And it's one of those things where it's life. It happens. Like it's not intentional. I'm not gonna be the commentator who's gonna recite you something that happened in 1969 or 82 or whatever. That's not gonna be me. And I'm not I'm not gonna try to cram all those numbers. It's just not me. So the authentic part of me is who you get. And I really, like I said, no matter who I interview, I really try to find that connection there and then expand off that connection, because everybody has something interesting about them beyond what they're talking about, whether it's like their movie or TV show or whatever they're promoting. I'm really more interested in the backstory behind that versus the oh, we're just promoting this, because eventually you get tired of promoting it, because I've seen that happen plenty of times.
A little too much, as they say, especially towards podcasts now. But I agree with you. To me, I always value in interviews just the conversation more than just, okay, I have to pinpoint just this one long thing and just advertise this movie or advertise this YouTube channel or whatever the case may be. It's always about the conversation. I feel like that's more valuable within a podcast, interviews in general, because, you really get that feel of like they're just two friends, talking normal life or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, that is definitely what I try to get at, and that's actually what my new show is going to be about. It's called Peaks and Valleys, and it's essentially going to be talking about the lowest point in somebody's life and how they came out of it, because people don't talk about that. And whether the person is a celebrity or whatever, they still go through the same thing. Like, even though they might be carrying $500 in their pocket and you're carrying 10, there's still problems no matter what. And really just kind of honing on that and kind of forming that connection, but then also using that as inspiration, because even though your story might be okay, you think it's okay, it might inspire somebody else. So that's what I really want to highlight. So I'm going to be talking to people from all walks of life. I have like one of the originators from like Canadian hip hop, which I'm really excited about. And I have Luke Cage, which I'm excited about. I have like so many different people from all walks of life. And that's what we're going to be talking about. And, just short and sweet. And it's like, yo, this time was terrible. And this is what happened to make it terrible. And this is how I got out of it. And this is why I'm happy now, or this is why I'm not happy now. And, kind of go from there.
Yeah, it's that storyteller mentality of really showcasing your story, telling that story, and really just being you. That's what's most important, is just being you, having that authenticity.
Yeah, very true.
All right, so TK, I do once again thank you so much for having that conversation. Of course, it's that storyteller mentality, trying to showcase that story and just make it your own. Of course, we talk about that authenticity. Before we go, though, I do have one final quote from your website, which again you guys could check out. Make sure you guys go check that out if you're listening on Spotify. It's actually somebody that has probably had the biggest impact in your broadcasting career. And that's going to be this quote here from your website, which states, from a former Hall of Famer and a WWE superstar, which is, TK was an invaluable member of the X-Pac 1-2-3-60 team. She's one of the hardest working people I know, and I wouldn't hesitate to recommend her services to anyone that asked. So with this said, what was it like working with X-Pac?
X-Pac was X-Pac. If those who know him, it's just one of those things, like, and again, it's kind of learning that lesson. I think I recently just learned it, where it's just like people have all their idiosyncrasies, and you just have to accept it. Obviously, the ones that are like terrible, like, you don't have to accept that. But, starting off an X-Pac show is one of those things where it's like, okay, we're going to do this, this, and that. And then, like, I won't hear from him, like, for like a week. And it's like, our show's the next day. And then, like, he doesn't really answer his phone, and he doesn't really do this and doesn't really do that. But that's what made him amazing. Like, it was just one of those things. And then again, coming from a background where it's just I'm more appreciative of wrestling as a sport, and not like realizing that he's a legend, but not realizing like how big of a legend he really is until like I'm literally sitting next to him, and now he brings on Steve Austin like it's nothing. Like, hey, we need a guest, and then he just goes into his Rolodex of phone, like his contacts, and just calls to people. It's just so amazing. And then also just seeing he's another one too. Just seeing somebody who's gone through a lot in life and is now doing like amazing. Like he has a show, and then he was at the Performance Center, and then I think he recently got married like a year or two ago. You know, we have a company called Clipper Ranks, which is like a hair company, and my co-partner, who's a barber, who's like he cuts like everybody's hair. X-Pac was looking for a barber, so I just sent him over there. And so it's just kind of like, it's just so amazing just to you know, just be around somebody who just lives the life, I guess you could say. Like he's made the mistakes, he's accepting of the mistakes, and you know, he's gonna make the best of whatever the opportunities are. And with AfterBuzz and his show, like he, you know, it's coming back again, when I saw in the tweet. And then, you know, I saw him at a museum like a year ago before COVID, obviously. And so it's just kind of one of those things where he's an amazing, the takeaway beyond all of that, you strip that all away. Him and Big Boy is another one. They're just amazingly humble, and they're just amazing, caring human beings. Like he took in a dog that I think she was like half blind, and I think there might be something wrong with her leg, and there's all sorts of problems, and like he loves this dog as if it's like a brand new dog. So you know, it's just amazing that he's been at these heights, but he's just so humble. And there are people who are not like that, who have been there, and they're just, you know, not terrible, but they don't realize that everybody's just human. And with X-Pac, it was just like he's like, all right, cool, you're on the team, let's go and do this. Like, it wasn't like, I'm X-Pac and therefore you have to, you know, can't look me in it. It wasn't like that. He's just such a humble and beautiful soul.
Well, from a beautiful soul to having the greatest theme song, I guess, of the Attitude Era. And not only that, but also leading great broadcasters like yourself. Once again, TK, I do want to thank you so much for the conversation. It was great getting to talk to you finally.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
And for those who don't know, she has a lot of content out there. Make sure you guys go subscribe to that content. Link will be down in the below. Of course, third time today. Not the broadcasting, excuse me. The website. Make sure you guys go check out the TK Trinidad website, and follow her on all social medias. Again, link will be down in the description so below. So thank you guys so much. And is there any final message you want to leave us off with tonight?
I mean, we got so many quotes. I think my quote that I live by is "by any means necessary." So I don't know why that's not on the website. I should probably put that on the website somewhere. But that's my final quote. But if you just type in TK Trinidad, like I told somebody the other day, I'm Googleable. Just Google me, and you're gonna find everything. Not to toot my own horn, but there's a lot of stuff out there. So, you know, if you want a podcast, it's there. If you want TV, it's there. If you want entertainment, it's there. So, you know, I thank you guys so much, and I appreciate it. And if you want some cocoa butter, check that out too, centerin.com.
Well, awesome. Well, once again, TK, thank you so much. And for all you guys, make sure you guys subscribe to the podcast on YouTube or on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and I think there's like a bunch more that's on there now. So make sure you guys go do that and follow TK once again, the second time, on all social media. So make sure you guys do that, and I will see you guys in the next interview.